So our next step is going to be to calculate the level of unemployment. In order to calculate the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed, or the statistical data that is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we are going to be taking the number of people who are unemployed, and you're going to divide it by the labor force, not the population, just the labor force. And you will multiply this by 100. And that will give you a percentage. So right now, our unemployment rate is of about 4.5%. This is in February of 2007. Is this a large number or a small number? According to what we would like to see, 4.5% unemployment is a relatively small number. Small because what we would like to see is a certain amount of workers, or a certain number of workers that is available for employment, and the amount or the percentage of people who would be unemployed and would create a buffer for inflation will prevent prices and cost of labor from going up, would be called the natural rate of unemployment, and that amount is going to be of 5%. So we would like to see about 5% of our labor force unemployed, because that's what will allow people to start businesses and not bid workers away from their existing jobs. Is the 5% common to all economies? And the answer is no. Depending on how much the government helps out people who are out of work, will depend how high the unemployment rate is going to be. So if you're looking at Western Europe, you will see that because of the extensive programs that countries like France, Germany have, the unemployment rate remains relatively high, because people have the alternative of using government subsidies and transfer payments in order to make ends meet. So for Western Europe, it is not unusual to have 9 or even 10% unemployment that they might consider the natural rate of unemployment. For the US economy, this would be a very high rate that would almost represent a recession. The other thing that we need to take into consideration is what we call the labor participation rate. How many of the people who are of working age are actually part of the labor force? So what you would do is you would take the labor force, the 150 million, you divide it by the working age population of 230 million, and you will multiply this by 100 to give you a percentage. The tendency for that is for the participation rate to be going up. And some of the reasons for that are social. There is a certain amount of pressure. People are identified by the careers that they have, by the jobs that they have. Moms used to be identified as the best cookie maker. Now probably very often they are going to be identified as those moms who drive the best cars or that have the best paying jobs. There is also an economic aspect to the participation rate. Advertising is actually promoting such high levels of consumption, and in order to buy everything that we got to have, then of course more than one income is necessary, and so more people enter the labor force. And then of course there is also the technological aspect, the fact that technology and machines and automation of a lot of our household chores has freed many people away from the tedious and time-consuming jobs, like for instance doing the laundry. Doing the laundry in the past used to be a full day's job that involved most of the people in the household. Today you just go buy your washer, drop some clothes, then the next time you pass by, you're just going to pick them up and put them into a dryer. Therefore, there is less time that is needed to run a household. We have 3 types of unemployment, and here they are listed: frictional unemployment, structural, and cyclical. So what is frictional unemployment? As we said before, we would like to see a certain number of people available for jobs, and these are people who are between jobs or those who are entering the labor force. So frictional unemployment is actually good for the economy. We don't want to have too high a frictional unemployment, but yet it is good because we know that this is helping out. Now, the second type is called structural. The best way to define structural unemployment is when there is a mismatch between the requirements of jobs that are being advertised and the qualifications of workers. So structural unemployment will need retraining. Cyclical unemployment relates to the business cycle. And therefore, if we are getting into a recession, many people are going to be cyclically unemployed, which means that they have lost their job because there is a lack of demand. There isn't enough demand for everything that is being produced, therefore people are going to be laid off. An example of cyclical unemployment would be in the durable goods industry. Durable goods are those that last for more than 2 years, and these are the first ones that are going to be for which the demand is going to decline, because if you're not sure about your job, you're not going to be buying large ticket items. And so these would be the first people who would be cyclically unemployed. Now, what should we do to reduce the 3 types of unemployment? Let's start with frictional. Again, keep in mind that we don't want 0. We do want some level of people between jobs, because it also shows that the economy is changing. It is evolving. New industries are being created while others are on the decline. Now, the way that you could improve on frictional unemployment is by making information more available, the information between employers and employees. And the internet is one way that we are able to do that, by posting jobs and therefore posting resumes, which is all much more helpful and much speedier to match employers and employees. Now, structural unemployment, that requires retraining. And how can we reduce the amount of structural unemployment? There are several ways, but let me mention just a few here. One, you could have the government step in and train those people who have lost jobs and right now need to change industries. The problem with that is that it is usually very expensive. Often people are being trained for jobs that might not really be in very high demand. The machinery and equipment that they are using is probably a little outdated. Now, the second way could be, for instance, to use community colleges. Like DVC has an agreement, a contract with Cisco to train students to be able to meet the requirements of certain certifications. So we issue certifications and we train people in the programs and the requirements that Cisco has, so that Cisco doesn't have to do it. But the third way would be actually for the company itself to hire those people who are unemployed and to train them for positions that are there on machinery that is going to be used. Now, these are the 3 ways, just a general idea about the 3 ways, and it is up to you to decide which one would you think would be the most efficient. And how would you, for instance, encourage private businesses to hire people, train them, and put them to work? Now, the third way would be cyclical. The third unemployment that we're trying to reduce would be cyclical unemployment. And that type of unemployment is going to be eliminated gradually as the economy improves and as the economy expands, more demand, and therefore you as the car worker, auto worker, are going to be able to find your job because now people are going to be buying more cars. Now, what are some of the trends in unemployment? The first one relates to the groups of people who are joining the labor force at a higher rate and those who are declining. You will see that more women are entering the labor force and the number of men, the percentage of men coming into the labor force is declining. What is the economic impact of more women coming into the labor force? Well, one of the most obvious would be the fact that GDP is going to be going up. Now, as GDP goes up, then our standard of living goes up because we have produced more goods. But beside that, as more women are working, they do not have time to do the same jobs or the same tasks that they had before around the house, and therefore more of those tasks are going to be paid for. We're going to be hiring people to do your yard work. You're going to be going out to dinner more often because mom does not have time to cook. And all these functions that before were performed without being recognized in the GDP, remember the chapter on calculating GDP, now it's going to be once again acknowledged, and GDP is going to be going up also for that reason. The other thing that we need to mention is the discouraged workers. Remember, we said that discouraged workers are those that have given up. And if they drop out of the labor force because they gave up, is this going to make the unemployment rate higher or lower? Well, if they drop out, they are no longer part of the unemployment, part of the labor force, therefore they are not unemployed. And as a result, the actual unemployment rate is going to be higher than that calculated based on the labor force, because those people gave up looking and the labor force shrunk. So the picture looks better because those who were unemployed and were looking for jobs are no longer looking. Now, the same a contrary situation is going to take place when the economy recovers. So now, let's say that you are a discouraged worker, and yet you hear that so many new jobs have been created. That's going to encourage you to go out and look for a job. So what is happening? Well, your labor force right now is going to increase, and it is going to increase mainly by those who are unemployed. So what you will see is that the economy is recovering, more jobs are being created, but at the same time, your unemployment rate is also going up, which is kind of contradictory. So keep that in mind when you see the different parts of the business cycle and what happens to the discouraged worker. By the way, the natural rate of unemployment at 5% would be mainly made up of frictional and structural. Your cyclical unemployment at the natural rate of unemployment is going to be 0, because this 5% will be at a time where the economy is doing very well. Therefore, it is at the peak of the business cycle. No people unemployed because of the business cycle. There is another thing that we need to look at, and that would be job creation. Just like the unemployment rate is going to be released every first Friday of the month, so will the number of jobs created, and that will be a net amount. We have jobs that are being created and others that are being destroyed because of technology, replaced by machinery, change in tastes, but also because of outsourcing. And we will talk about outsourcing later on. But basically, if those jobs are being exported to other countries, then this is what we call destruction of jobs in the country itself and creation of jobs in the country that they are going to. So now, when it comes to the number of jobs created, it is something that I would like you to follow through, just like you are going to be keeping track of the unemployment rate every month. You will also keep track of the number of jobs created. A good number would be about 200,000 jobs created in one particular month. Okay. So keep that in mind, and the main discussion item, the discussion assignment that you are going to have on your discussion board will be to look at the economic, social, and political consequences of unemployment. I hope you have enjoyed that.